Well, hi, this is Sam, in case you didn't know, and welcome to another video. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about a question I do get a lot on my Instagram, and that is, how do people react when they see me outside? So, with addressing this question, I'm actually addressing another very frequently asked question that I have answered quite a few times. Do I dress like this outside? Do I dress like this all the time? Yes, I do. This is my everyday style all year around, and there is plenty of people around the world that dresses this way too. But anyway, let's get into the question. How do people react when they see me outside? Well, first of all, the times I am outside, I'm kind of like in my own world that have developed over the years. Like, I'm like not really thinking about who's staring at me, who is doing this, who is doing that. I'm just doing my thing. I just want to be, so to say. So it's not like that I'm paying super attention to uh, how people are looking at me or anything like that. But of course, I remember when if I was very tired, it had been a long day, etc. This was a few years ago. I remember this. Then I really noticed if people were staring at me or pointing at me or laughing at me and stuff like that, and that would really annoy me back then. But now it's just like, well, who cares? I'm living my life, you're living your life. Just let me be, essentially. Um, but I would say if I have to go into how do people react when you're outside, well, most people are just positive towards this style. Nobody really are mean or negative. It's more on the internet, but I have covered nasty people on the internet, so it's just trolls. So that's a whole nother subject I'm not going to talk about now. But essentially, or the very point of this is, I do not care about people being mean, laughing, whatever. It says more about these people than it says about me, really. So naturally, everybody has different experiences of people around the world. So what I'm gonna share is my own personal opinions and experiences. So with that being said, how do people actually react? Well, I mean, I would say that um, adults, most adults don't say anything. They don't stare. I don't think they even think about it, which is nice. I don't want attention by people outside. I just want to be. So um, that's those people. They don't really notice me, which is just how I want it. I just want to be. Then there is the adults. It's gonna be a little bit of about adults, younger people, or younger adults, I should say. Then it's younger people, then it's kids. But we're starting with the adults. So then there is adults who inappropriately, or maybe I should say, yeah, I would say that they're staring, like in a rude way and inappropriately. Because I mean, I was taught not to stare at people, so I don't know what these adults are doing. So they're rudely staring at you, basically, like they haven't seen a human before almost. I've experienced this many times, and I probably will continue to experience this all throughout my life. It doesn't bother me at all. As I said, it's just I'm answering the question of how are people reacting when I'm outside. So some people do that, they stare, and they lean into whoever they're standing with and whisper something, and I'm like, really? You're like, you seem to be like 45, 50, where's your manners? So that's those people. Then there are the adults who can come up to you. Maybe they look at you, but they smile because they're like, oh, in the end, and then they come up to you and then like, oh, you remind me of my grandpa or of my dad or something like that. And that's very nice. I think that's very polite. So that's the, I guess, the nice stare, because they don't stare at you for like several minutes. It's just like a few seconds and then they come up to you, or they don't even stare. Suddenly you see somebody walking towards you, or maybe you don't see them, they're just walking up to you and they say, hey, I really like your style, or something like that, and that's totally fine. So that's how those people react. And I also find that when there is adults and they have their children with them and they act, if I backtrack a little bit, and the adults are the people who are a little bit rude staring and something like that, I feel like they're teaching their children the wrong thing. They're teaching the unpolite thing. I mean, just because somebody is dressing, if you will, differently from what society thinks is normal, You shouldn't be staring, or especially not doing it in front of your children, because you're teaching them an inappropriate behavior, in my opinion, because I was taught differently when I was a child. And then you have the adults who are nice, and they have their children with you, and they are nice to me and everything, and their children sees that, which is appropriate way of teaching their children how to be, because you're not teaching your children how to be by telling them. You're teaching them by showing how to be a good person, essentially. So yeah, then we have the younger adults, if you will. Let's say those who are between 18 to 30, I would say. In my mind, that's young adults. They can either stare at you, laugh at you, or just look at you for a few seconds and smile and say, yeah, I like your style, or where did you get that suit, or something like that. So the majority there are also very nice people. But then if we get below 18, then I can't really, I feel like I cannot blame the kids or the young teens or something, because they have not been taught properly by the adults. So I remember this day particularly, because that was one day where I really was bothered by people staring at me. This was several years ago. I think it was like 4 years ago or 5 years ago. I don't really remember. But anyway, so I was at the store, I was standing in line to the cashier, and I feel somebody staring at me. I think I was just looking down, I was just standing there, and I feel somebody staring at me. So I look up, there's these two people, they're like 15, 16, and they're really rudely staring at me. And I'm like, okay. So I look at them, and they keep rudely staring at me. And honestly, I was like, take a picture, it lasts longer. And they're like, huh? And I'm like, it's rude to stare, don't stare. And they're like, huh? And I'm like, haven't their parents taught them it's rude to stare? So hopefully I taught them a lesson that it's rude to stare. Somebody's gonna react if you're staring at them rudely for several minutes. And backtracking a little bit, I also remember another incident several years ago. I was standing in line. It was young adults. I think they were in their mid-20s or something like that. Uh, and it also was at the cashier line, but they had already paid, and they were getting their groceries. And then I see it was husband and wife, I think, or boyfriend, girlfriend. So he was taking the groceries, and he was looking at me, and I was like, okay, do I know him maybe or something? No, I didn't know him. I could see I didn't know him, and he was totally not thinking about that I was looking at him, because he was just staring at me. Then he leans to his other half, and he whispers something and pointing at me, and I'm like, you don't point at people when you're out. That's so rude. Um, but on the other hand, I remember another couple once when they were getting their groceries and stuff, and I remember they both used to glance at me quickly, and then they whispered something, and then they smiled, and I was like, oh, okay, well, that's not rude, because they probably just said something about my style or something. It could have been the opposite. They looked at me for a few seconds, whispered, and laughed at me, but they didn't. So it's all kind of people, really. But I would say always the majority is nice. And now I'm jumping a little bit back and forth, so bear with me. And when it comes to children, I don't really pay attention at all, because I feel like they're young. It's not their it's not on them to already know, like, you don't stare, you don't point, etc., etc. That's not the children. It's not the children who are supposed to know this automatically. It's their parents that are supposed to teach them this. So, but mostly I know some children, I think they're just fascinated. It looks like it on them. They're just fascinated to see something that they don't see every day. And I think that's a very good opportunity for the parents to teach their children. Like, okay, well, here you see a person. This person has a different style. We do not point. We do not stare rudely. You can just look at them, but don't stare forever at them. But sometimes I feel like the teaching children the right thing, talking to them, showing them what's the right, because I mean, they would probably look at their parent, oh, is my parent staring at this person? No, my parent is not. Okay, I'm not going to do that either. A lot of these things has disappeared because sometimes even the parent is staring at me rudely. So of course the child is going to see their parents staring rudely at me and do the same. So I don't know, sometimes it feels like some fundamentals in society have disappeared, which is a shame. But that would be the conclusion, I think, of how different uh, ages react to seeing me outside. But I would say to make another conclusion here is that most people are very kind, very nice people. Um, give compliments, they just smile at you, and all that kind of stuff. So most people are very nice, but I think it's important to talk about both sides. Um, try because I want people. If you're watching this and you stare at people rudely, just stop, please. Maybe you don't know about it, but think about it next time. Are you staring at somebody rudely just because they dress differently from the normal thing from society? I'm not saying you're a bad person. I'm not saying anybody's a bad person. I'm just saying that people have forgotten manners a little bit, um, and maybe are not teaching their children the right thing, in my opinion. I mean, everybody has different opinions of what the right thing is, but I mean, the fundamentals is, I guess, that you try to make your child a good person and respectful and good manners and all that kind of stuff. And it comes down to the parents doing the right thing. So this is all my personal opinions, personal experiences on this question. I hope I could shine some light on the question and answer the question properly. If there is any other subject you would like me to talk about from my own personal experience and thoughts, let me know in the comments below. Well, bummer, this video has already ended. But guess what? There's a huge selection of different videos on my YouTube channel. Why don't you go check them out? If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment, subscribe if you're new here. In the description below, you will find a link to my Instagram page. You will find a link to my Patreon page if you want to support me and my content so I can continue doing what I do. There is also a link to my Buy Me a Coffee profile. Thanks for watching this video. Stay safe and well.